I really shouldn't be surprised about how badly Anbernic messed this one up. We've got another dual screen handheld. This time, it's actually affordable at just under $100. This is the RG DS. It looks a lot like a DS Lite, but it is not at all the size of a DS Lite. It's a decent amount bigger. It's a budget Android handheld with some really big promises and some very low power. It can play anything up to DS games, and it can play all those systems very well, except for the DS games. What the hell is that about? It's been fixed. It now plays DS games pretty decently, but I want to tell this story sequentially. This thing ships to customers this week, but it shipped out to reviewers weeks ago. Reviewers basically lambasted this thing for its baffling DS performance. You know, the one system it should be excelling at because it looks like a DS. The issue isn't that it's not powerful enough to run DS games. It can run the games just fine. For whatever reason, the top screen is only around 40 hertz. It's extremely noticeable when playing anything on the top screen that's supposed to be 60 hertz. Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack, the 3DS game, for example, only runs at 30 frames per second. So it looks pretty good on this top screen, actually. Sonic Rush is an abomination. It's slow, you're losing frames, and the top screen is completely disconnected from the bottom screen. It's an absolute disaster. How did this pass any sort of QA? Who decided to ship this? Well, they only really shipped it like this to reviewers. I got my hands on the release build, which is what you should be getting if you purchase one of these just this week. And it seems like they fixed that 60 hertz issue. It's way better now. DS games are actually playable. There's still a bit of input lag, but it is way better than it once was. This went from being one of the most disappointing devices of the year to a reasonable budget dual screen experience that might be worth picking up for some people. This video is sponsored by Factor.
Bobby, you've always been my favorite nephew. No one would even come see me in my dying days.
Everyone's gonna miss those dinners we've had.
Oh, the dinners.
Those rigatoni and meatballs are gonna be hard to top.
Oh, the best. With the tomatoes.
Yep, the tomatoes.
Ooh, and the fresh basil.
Yes, of course. And what else was in that? In detail? Tell me.
Well, that's all you really need.
Well, how did you manage to make it all those years? In detail. How did you make it? From start to finish, how did you make it? Beginning to end. Hello? 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 What? Tell me how you make the rigatoni, you son of a bitch! It doesn't need to be this hard to make a good meal. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all that you have to do is heat it and enjoy. Skip the grocery store's prep work and cooking fatigue. Instead, just get chef-curated, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. They got more than food. They've got smoothies, they've got juices, they've got wellness shots, and now they have breakfast, too. How long do you stir the sauce?
All day, like 8 hours.
Thank you. You can pop it in the microwave if you're in a hurry. Sometimes I forget to eat, so having Factor in the fridge ready to go has kept me a little bit healthier. Now I don't have to plan my meals. I just got them ready to go. You can try it for yourself over at factor75.com and use code YAHUNGRY, FB50, to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. That's YAHUNGRY, FB50 for 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. You hear something in the other room? My cousin killing my uncle?
Oh my God! You're killing him!
Yeah, I'm getting the rigatoni recipe out of him.
Oh my God!
Well, can you get the spumoni recipe out of him too?
I don't know how much longer he's got, but we can try.
Start out with really cold milk.
Thank you. You got a bad rap. Anbernic sent this to me, and I appreciate that. It is $94 on their website. That one does not come with a micro SD card, and I would imagine that there's some shipping and tariffs involved. So expect to pay a little bit more than that. Even still, this is a budget-friendly dual-screen handheld. It is a lot more reasonably priced than the Ein Lokis or the Aya Neo Pocket DSs out there. although those are way more powerful and probably worth the hundreds of dollars more you'd be paying for those if you're at all interested in 3DS games and beyond. Playing Steam games on a DS is very, very cool. This is way, way less powerful. It is Android, so you can put whatever apps you want on here, but they're not all gonna run well. I did manage to get some Nintendo Switch to work, but don't expect anything 3D to work. It doesn't have the Google Play Store installed on here, so I didn't even try to run any 3D Mark benchmarks or anything. Just understand this thing is low powered. It has 3 whopping gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of internal storage, so bring your own micro SD card. The whole unit is substantially bigger than an actual DS Lite, but overall it does look pretty much exactly like a DS Lite, just bigger. The screens are also substantially bigger. They are the exact same aspect ratio as the DS, but a 2.5 times higher resolution. This is not a great integer to be scaling to, but with the filter that Drastic provides by default, it really doesn't look all that bad. I do really like the clickiness of all of the buttons. It is super satisfying. The D-pad is awesome. The thumbsticks are in a horrendous spot, but it is what it is. They're fine. The shoulder buttons are inline, which is also fine given the form factor. They are also extremely clicky. This device also came with a stylus, but it is a capacitive stylus, so it's not really any better than just using your finger, to be honest. The hinge is extremely thick. It has a lot of friction. I don't know if this is indicative of how sturdy it will be over time, but it feels very solid. I know these emulation handhelds have hinge issues. I personally have never had any issues with really any emulation handheld, but this one seems pretty sturdy so far. It articulates all the way 180 degrees, and there is no clicking. It is just, you can get the full range of motion. You can put it anywhere you want, which is pretty awesome. Out of the box, it does a very quick Android setup. It seems like a sort of custom Android. It gives you all of the emulators you'll need to get this thing going right out of the box. There's no launcher or anything, so you sort of just have to know which emulation apps correspond to which systems. DS games are played with Drastic. Dreamcast is played with Redream or Flycast. PlayStation 1 is DuckStation, and the rest are pretty self-explanatory. Weirdly, this thing comes with Azahar, the 3DS emulator, and this thing should not be powerful enough at all to play 3DS games. So we gotta try that. As you can imagine, it runs like absolute ass. But I did start with a pretty graphically intensive game, and this thing was never intended to play 3DS games. Although they did include the emulator, so I had to try it. I then booted up Azure Striker Gunvolt, which is a much less graphically intensive game. The background did not render in at first when I first entered the game, but after that initial section, everything just sort of worked, and it worked just fine. The frame rate wasn't even dipping or anything. I don't know what to expect when I get further into the game. Some of the boss fights can get pretty nutty with how much stuff is on screen, but I was pretty surprised that it was even capable of rendering any 3DS game. So if you have a 3DS game that you want to play that's like low powered, it might play on here, but definitely don't get this thing to play 3DS games. It's like a happy bonus. I tried some Game Boy Advance, and it's fine. I don't love how it scales on here. It's a little blurry, so maybe get yourself a nice overlay filter or something for Game Boy Advance games. I also just don't love playing single screen games on here. It's just kind of a waste of the top screen. It's not doing anything. Maybe install YouTube and start multitasking something. I don't know. N64 also runs fine. These thumbsticks are just not in a great spot. So this really isn't something that I want to play on here. It runs fine, it's just really not comfortable. Dreamcast does not run fine. Both Flycast and Redream are a little slow with different types of stuttering. It's as if Anbernic put both emulators on here to say, I don't know, why don't you figure it out? I tried GameCube just for the hell of it. You'd probably want to avoid that. Just stick to anything DS and below. I also tried Switch emulation with the Eden emulator, just for the hell of it. I didn't expect this to work at all, but to my surprise, I managed to run Sonic Mania. It ran a little slow at first, but cutting the resolution in half drastically increased performance. It now runs perfectly fine. This is about all you can expect from Switch emulation, though. Nothing else ran well. I also tried Steam games via Game Native. Those didn't run at all, not a single one, not even Celeste. I didn't expect this thing to run Steam games. I didn't even expect this thing to be Android. So the fact that it's even capable of downloading those apps, I just needed to try it. I've been burying the most important console, and that's DS games, because there's just so much other stuff to talk about. I wanted to get all that stuff out of the way. DS games ran bad for a while, and now they run good. But it was a little bit of a journey to get here. It comes with Drastic, which is probably not as good as Melon DS, but it's fine. I really don't like the menus in Drastic, but it's a minor inconvenience. The default scaling and pixel grid overlay is pretty much perfect the way that it is, or I guess I should say it's as perfect as we can get on this device. It looks good. You can tell the scaling is off if you do a direct comparison, but on its own, I think it's retro enough to pass as authentic. The biggest issue was the top screen refresh rate. This was not just an issue with DS games. This was an issue with any 60 frames per second game that you wanted to play on the top screen across all systems. It's a 60 hertz screen, but for whatever reason, it only runs at 40 hertz. That makes games that run at 60 frames per second look like absolute dog shit on this screen. I emulated most games on the bottom screen, and a lot of 3DS games run at 30 frames per second, so I actually didn't even realize this until I started playing DS games. You know, the flagship system, this handheld, trying to emulate. Kirby's Canvas Curse is basically the only game that runs good, because that is played almost entirely on the bottom screen. Not only do the games look bad on the top screen, but this lower refresh rate causes a very significant desync. Sonic Rush is supposed to show a seamless continuation of the level on both screens. Obviously, the screens don't line up here. That is, of course, on top of the game not showing the right frame rate. There is also some horrendous input lag. Rhythm Heaven is almost impossible to play on here. Not only is there input lag across the whole system, but it's compounded by a desync between the top and bottom screens. The top screen is way behind the bottom screen, so you're not gonna really get any timings right on this handheld. So the way this was shipped to reviewers was completely unplayable for DS games. This original firmware was an abject failure by Anbernic. It's amazing that this even made it out of the warehouse in this state. Luckily, they released a fixed firmware that will now be going out with retail units this week when everybody gets their own to their house. And you can thank the Gamma Squeeze, the maker of Gamma OS, for this. So really, it's still an abject failure on the part of Anbernic. They're once again relying on unpaid community support for their hardware. That's not the makings of a good, reputable brand. You could say that it's them listening to the community, but it shouldn't have ever been up to that. It's really just a sign of their ignorance. Anyway, you shouldn't have to manually update this, but if you did, it's as easy as downloading it, grabbing a micro SD card. Probably don't grab the one that you put your ROMs on like I did, because it'll wipe the whole thing. Then use their extremely Chinese firmware updater tool to flash the micro SD card with the firmware.
Okay, I don't know what that says. I think I might delete everything.
This takes quite a bit of time, and when that's done, you just take the micro SD card, put it back in the system, do a quick boot, and it'll be completely wiped, but it'll have the new firmware on it. Again, you shouldn't have to do any of this. This should ship with the retail units, but, you know, Embernic has said one thing and done something else in the past. This new firmware is update 1.4, and it's supposed to fix the refresh rate of the top screen. It's also supposed to optimize screen synchronization for DS games, which is kind of the same thing. And it adds a brightness slider for both screens, which is very nice. After some testing, it's definitely better now. DS games are looking like they're hitting that 60 Hz refresh rate on the top screen. This will also fix other systems if you choose to play them on the top screen instead of the bottom screen. So it's an overall great fix. I don't think the desync is 100% fixed. I see a slight desync in Sonic Rush, but it's definitely nowhere near as bad as it was on the original firmware. There's also still a significant amount of input lag. It might be slightly better, but input lag is still an issue for sure. I think Rhythm Heaven is kind of completely unplayable on here. It's like a whole beat off in this minigame. With the new firmware, I had to completely reconfigure Azahar. It did not come configured like it did on the last firmware. I don't know what happened. I had to change all of the screen layout settings, and it's just a lot of trial and error until you get the game to work. Before this firmware update, I would say that this Anbernic RG DS is a complete failure that's capable of playing any system just fine, except for the one that it's designed to look just like. After this firmware update, this is a pretty decent budget console. If you want to play everything DS and under with a bit of wiggle room to try some other more powerful stuff that probably won't run that great, this is up there with some of the best emulation handhelds in that price point. A lot of people really want dual screen features. The dual screen is very popular these days. This is a great entry point for those people. Is it the best way to play DS games? Absolutely not. The Einthor is still the best dual screen handheld. But I understand that it's also 3 times the price. So it's in a completely different ballpark. You can get a DS Lite on eBay for around the same price. And if you pay $25 extra, you can get an R4 for that console. And this is the best way to play DS ROMs. The battery life is great. Everything looks good and runs exactly as it should. The DS hardware is built like a tank. It feels good. There's almost no better handheld console than an actual DS. I have a whole video on this as well. I also don't want to rule out the 2DS Wedge. This doesn't get a lot of love because it doesn't have a hinge and it has no 3D. But it's also built like a tank. It plays 3DS games. It's insanely easy to hack, and it sells for around the same price as an RG DS. You can even slap an R4 in one of these if you're lazy, but that will only play DS games. You'll need to hack it if you want actual 3DS ROMs. The main draw of the RG DS is that it can play more than just DS ROMs, and it does a pretty decent job at that. You can play Game Boy Advance, N64, SNES, and more. Just don't expect too much power. Is it the best DS? No. But for $100, it's pretty damn decent now that the fix is out. So what do you guys think about the RG DS? Are you still salty about this? I mean, the reviews are now a little out of date. This is why I hate when the reviews are like over a month before the retail units ship. This is why I'd rather just buy the retail unit. I'm very happy that Anbernic was able to send me the firmware update and that I was able to do it myself. Another phenomenal shout out to the Gamma Squeeze, who is the reason why this fix was even implemented in the first place. He also has his own Gamma OS firmware that you could put on here, which could be better and more optimized for this thing, but it was a beta build that he sent me and it was a little complicated, and Anbernic sent me one that was a little easier to do, and it's the same fix that he has, so I did it the lazy way. Anyway, let me know what you think and why you would want one of these things. Is there a use case that I left out other than playing DS games? Leave it in the comments below, at me on Twitter, any and all of this other social media garbage. What do you want to play? Cookie Clicker on one screen while you play Pokemon on the other or something? We launched a Patreon for our podcast, youtube.com/WolfDenPodcast. Here's all the patrons. Wow, that's amazing. I love you so much. The most important thing you can do to help support this channel is just subscribe right here and share this video with a friend who's interested in the DS world of games or wants to get into emulation handhelds, because this might be good if you can set them up with all the ROMs that they want. Thank you very much. Have yourself a very good week.